Hi, this is Michael Buffer, and welcome to the BoxHard Podcast.
Hello, everyone. This is Mikey Garcia.
This the monster from the swamps, Regis Rougarou Program.
Hey, what's up? This is King Carlos Molina, former IBF world champ.
This is Michael, the Bounty Hunter, 2012 Olympian and your people's champ.
This is Charlie Edwards, flyweight champion of the world.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to episode 488 of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined as ever by a former heavyweight world title challenger, the main man himself, Mr. Fast Eddie Chambers. Eddie, how you doing this week?
I'm doing great, my man. How about you?
Always good when speaking with you, Eddie, particularly when it has been a fantastic weekend of boxing, which it was. We're going to dive straight into the review part of the show. We're going to start here, though, in Mexico, in Tijuana. Over here, we saw two fights to mention. We saw Luis Nery move to 36-2, a TKO for him in the 7th against Kyonosuke Kameda, now 15-4 with 2 draws. Also a successful ring return for Frank Sanchez, now 25-1, a TKO for him in the 3rd against Ramon Echeverria, who's now 18-25. Moving now then to the big one. We're going to start, I guess, down the undercard. Let's start with this one first. Shakur Stevenson, now 23-0, a TKO for him in the 9th round against the UK's undefeated Josh Padley, now 15-1, a successful defense of Shakur's WBC lightweight world title. Padley down 3 times, all from shots to the body in that 9th round, and then the towel came in from the corner. Look, there's not too much to say. Obviously, we all know the story. Shakur Stevenson had an opponent change on fight week. Josh Padley, an electrician from the UK and, obviously part-time boxer, answered the call and flew out there. And it's a crazy story, Eddie. He actually left his work van at the airport because he had to get there as quick as he could. So he left his van in the airport car park, which I'm sure would have cost an absolute fortune, and then flew out to Saudi. And obviously we've all heard about the massive payday he received for saving the fight, along with a rumoured house he was given as well, a selection or a pick of about 3 houses and a massive pay packet. So it's a win-win for Josh Padley. He shared the ring with a true great in Shakur Stevenson. But yeah, it was just complete target practice for Shakur Stevenson. Credit to Padley for lasting up until the 9th round. In all honesty, I did expect him to come in, out of shape, crashing the weight, and I expected Shakur Stevenson to just have too much for him. I knew that Shakur Stevenson was going to be coming forward, trying to, force the pressure in this fight. We don't always see that from him. He does like to sometimes just, invite his opponent in, and he'll box very cleverly off the back foot. But this time he was the aggressor, and when he wanted to put his shots together, he looked really, really good. But again, we can't get too carried away. Josh Padley did what he had to do, and credit to him. And like I say, it was a very much expected result from Shakur Stevenson. I don't know if you want to say any words on that, Eddie, but if you do, keep it brief so we can move on to the next few fights.
Yeah. I just want to say he looked sharp. As expected, he was getting ready for a fight that he was, really up for. So, but credit to Padley. He came in the first round or so and actually did some good things. You know what I mean? You could see that he could box. You could see he has skills. I hope, he doesn't just take the money and all the gifts and all the good things and just, right off into the sunset just yet. I think he can still have a decent career after that. I think he should get back in and get back to work. And I'm not talking about the electrician, even though that's a good thing to fall back on. But, yeah. So, pretty good pretty good situation we got with that fight. A lot more exciting than I would have expected.
Yeah, credit to Josh Padley once again. Let's move on then. Let's move up the card to this one. This one was for the WBO interim heavyweight world title. Joseph Parker obviously having to box yet another late replacement. Parker now 36-3. Fight number 39 there against Martin Bakole, now 21-2. Martin Bakole arrived in Riyadh less than 24 hours ahead of his fight against Joseph Parker. We know that obviously Bakole came in over 300 pounds, and we know that he was in Congo at the time. I think he was like ticking over in the gym out there or something like that. You know, obviously wasn't really in fight mode or anything like that. And he had to get on a few connecting flights to get himself to Riyadh. Obviously, he was paid very handsomely once again. So, again, you know, it was a short night's work and it was a massive, massive payday. But yeah, Joseph Parker, to get him out in the second round, Eddie, very impressive, I think. You know, I don't want to, again, go too deep into it because obviously I've just mentioned there Bakole was not thinking about boxing whatsoever out in Congo, and he's come over obviously really heavy. I've just alluded to all these things, but I expected him to be dangerous for the first few rounds. A lot of people were expecting Parker to maybe get to Bakole in the second half of the fight after he had worn him down a little bit, but to get him out in just the second round was quite impressive, I'd say, because Bakole hadn't really showed any signs prior to being caught with that big right hand. He hadn't really shown any signs of anything negative. He had a decent first round. He caught Joseph Parker with a few shots. I think he hurt him as well with a body shot, if I'm not mistaken. So had a decent first round, but then obviously it all goes wrong for him in the second. And it was a weird punch because Joseph caught him with this big shot, and obviously the reaction was very much delayed. And then Bakole went this way, that way, and down. So yeah, a bit of a mad knockdown in the end. When he got back up, by the way, I did think it was quite premature from his corner man, Billy Nelson, throwing the towel in and stopping it. I felt that was just a little bit premature from him. But again, I don't know what Bakole's eyes looked like close up, and many said that his eyes were all over the place. And I don't know, I just thought, wow, seemed a little bit too soon for someone who can punch and who is as dangerous as Martin Bakole. But that was just my view. Again, Eddie, let's keep it nice and brief. What did you think of that? We have to applaud Parker, I think, once again, and I do extremely feel for him because he was supposed to be boxing for a world title here, and that was snatched away. And if he would have lost this, you just know he would have been right down the bottom of the pile, and it would have been some real BS.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and you know, Martin Bakole is, you know, it was a long shot for him, but early in the fight he's extremely dangerous, especially in a situation like this where he's got nothing to lose, you know what I mean, everything to gain. So it's really a lot on Parker, and it says a lot about his character to even just take a dangerous opponent like that short notice, regardless of whether he was in shape or not. So, you know, Parker, yeah, he's the right kind of guy for, you know, in boxing right now. He's doing the right things. And for him to get Bakole out early, when, you know, you would have expected him to be able to utilize the conditioning or lack thereof for Bakole is, you know, in the second half of the fight, for him to get him out of there with one shot in the second round is pretty impressive, regardless of the state he was in. I mean, you didn't get a chance to really see that being abused by Parker. So, you know, he did what he had to do. It was a good performance considering, and even with Bakole, and like you said, he landed a good body shot and a couple good shots to the head. It could have hurt Parker, and Parker came right back and ended up giving him the business in the end. So, yeah, good performance. Had you on the edge of your seat, even though, you know, you kind of knew what to expect. But yeah, it was an interesting fight. Hopefully, Bakole, you know, can come back from that, which he obviously can. I mean, this was a short notice thing, so yeah, looking forward to the future for both guys.
Yeah, Martin Bakoli's actually still going to be going ahead with his fight against Efia Jagba. That fight's locked in for a few weeks' time. I believe it was supposed to be maybe for an interim title or maybe some kind of eliminator. That has actually just become a normal fight, you know, with no belt or position on the line apparently now. But that was one of the conditions about taking this fight against Parker. So he is still going ahead with his fight against Efia Jagba, which I've been looking forward to. What else do we have on the card? Zhilei Zhang, now 27-3, Eddie, with that one draw, a KO loss for him. He was KO'd in the 6th against Ajit Kabayel, now 26-0. This one for the WBC interim heavyweight world title. Kabayel down in round 5 himself. Zhang, though, KO'd with a body shot in the 6th. I said it on last week's show. I remember the words exactly. I said you can bet... well, I don't remember the words exactly, but I said basically you can bet anything on the fact that Kabayel will be going to Zhang's body, and that is what we saw. Kabayel once again, I don't want to say upsets the odds because he was actually the slight favourite, but again pulls off another magnificent knockout against an extremely dangerous heavyweight. It's 3 in a row now, 3 big wins, 3 massive wins for Kabayel, and I think now that he deserves a big fight next. Obviously, he is kind of the Who Needs Him Club top member. You know, you're not going to want to fight Kabayel because, again, I don't think he brings tons to the table. And he is being rewarded for these big wins, of course, by Turki Al Sheikh. But I would like to see him maybe box for a heavyweight world title. I think he's done enough. I would love to see him in against someone like Daniel Dubois. I think that would be a really good, interesting clash of styles. But he's a very, very smart heavyweight. He showed it once again. And it was interesting, Eddie, because he decided to meet Zhang head on. He didn't want to kind of, I guess allow himself to be backed up. He decided to just come forward and at times push Zhang back, which was very interesting. And again, going down to the body as much as he had done really emptied Zhang's tank out very quickly. Obviously, it only took one punch from Zhang to knock Kabayel down in the 5th round, which was, strangely enough, the round before Zhang got stopped in. But yeah, that was a big shot that really hurt Kabayel. But again, by that point, Kabayel had sunk in so many body shots that Zhang didn't really have too much to try and finish him off with. He did try, but again, he was just too slow on his feet, too slow with his punches. Kabayel was much quicker on his feet, and that's one of Kabayel's strongest attributes, having those quick feet and obviously showing a very, very good boxing brain, along with being, as you said, a very rare heavyweight body puncher. Yeah, I'm just over the moon for Kabayel. I really am. I really, really am. He's been a good fighter for a long, long time. There were rumours at one point that he was like an entrepreneur or something and didn't even really need to box. It was like a bit of a hobby. He was doing it for passion rather than money. And he's taken some extremely dangerous fights that were expected at least to have tested his heart, his hunger, his desire. And it seems like there's no problem with those things. He is a very, very good fighter, and he's proved it now, Eddie. 3 fights in a row, and honestly, there's very few heavyweights that are more deserving of a big slice of the cake in terms of the belts than Kabayel, and I'm here for it. I like him. He's a very different type of fighter, and yeah, doesn't have a ripped physique either.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't necessarily remind me of me, but he does at the same time. Not really saying much, not really in the too much in the public eye. Also, not somebody that people were standing in line to fight, and it's because of that rare style.
Also because he's a rich entrepreneur.
Say it again. Oh, well, yeah, that too, maybe. Well, that's not me, by the way. But it would be nice, right? But no, I think his IQ is understanding. I think the way he fought Zhang, and I saw it coming. And in the beginning of the fight, he was moving a little bit, not too much, just a little. and making Zhang use his feet, making Zhang press a little bit more than he needed to. Zhang should have just been happy being at range and just kept him at range. But once he started to get a little greedy, and he could also see that Zhang was blowing a little bit, and meaning, he getting a little gassed at times, he realized it's time to cut the distance down and just not necessarily stand in front of him without consequence, because he obviously knew Zhang is a puncher. And that's why he ended up getting dropped. He took a little bit, he bit off a little more than he could chew at the time he did. He probably should have waited a little longer before he went about it. Probably wouldn't have got dropped and probably would have just got Zhang out of there, probably maybe 7 or 8. But I guess he wanted to do it early. So he went in and ended up getting caught with a crazy shot, because Zhang, let's not forget, Zhang is also really skilled as well. He's just, because he's big and he knocks people out with those huge shots, he still knows, and he still has a decent enough boxing IQ or an understanding of boxing. So but Caballel is a rare heavyweight fighter that not only just goes to the body, but he has like a toughness and a grit that goes along with it. I really, really like what I saw. You know what I mean? A lot. It made me say, damn, where the hell they was hiding this guy at? I didn't, I heard about him in 3 fights only. I didn't know anything about him before that. And I'm like, no, this guy, he's got something. And it's not that he's super duper fast or he moves great. I mean, he does move pretty well. And remember, he's a smaller heavyweight, so he needs to be able to do that. But it's being able to walk down some of these bigger guys, and the way he's doing it, and the punches he's throwing, and his punch selection, and his intention, his toughness. You know what I mean? And the IQ, all of it together, it just makes for a really, really exceptional fighter. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm kind of a fan. I ain't gonna lie. I want to see some more. I want to see the next fight. I want to see who he fights. I want to see if he can get a Dubois in there. Maybe, obviously probably not going to be able to get Usyk right away or anything like that. But I like to see him get, one of those higher upper echelon guys, maybe even an AJ or something. That would be a really good test for him to see where he's at. So, yeah, awesome young fighter, man. I can't wait to see the future.
Yeah, that makes 2 of us. I remember him bursting on the scene somewhat when he beat a very poor Derek Chisora many years ago in Monaco, but he didn't really do much after that. And then, yeah, he's really been impressive. I do just want to touch on, Eddie, your parlay. You probably didn't want me to bring it up, but the parlay that you laid out was pretty bad now in hindsight. I'm going to get through some of the other fights, but just to revisit it, Eddie, Josh Buatsi to win, Zhang to win, Madrimov to win, Hamza Shiraz to win, Shakur Stevenson to win, yes, you got that one against Josh Padley. However, Stevie Wonder would have picked that one. Joseph Parker to beat Daniel Dubois, because at the time the fight hadn't yet fallen through, so that one's just going to have to be voided. And then lastly, and the best pick of the bunch actually on your whole parlay, Dimitri Bivol to win by decision. That obviously landed. So it was crazy, because at one point I was watching the fights and I kept looking back at your parlay, and at one point you'd got 4 wrong out of 4 in a row.
I was 0-4. Damn. You know what's crazy though, Joe? Those picks, I would say I picked Zhang, right? And probably by knockout. The reason that I picked the majority of those picks, I had no clue about the fighter. Now, obviously, some of them I did. You know what I mean? But and the shot in the dark, picking like Zhang, I'm expecting if this guy's gonna be in there to throw body punches, he's gonna be in range to be hit. And obviously, what I thought actually turned out, but it just didn't finish. And the kid was way tougher than I expected, and he just went in for the kill after that. But I'm not trying to defend myself. I mean, they were terrible picks, but a lot of them I just didn't really know about. Now, if I'd have known about Caballel before, I would have never picked Zhang in that way. I would have said it would have probably been a shot in the dark, which I would have been right. But Zhang had a chance. I mean, Zhang could have done it, but he don't have the tank for a guy like that. A small heavyweight. I didn't even know Caballero was that small. I had no idea. You know what I mean? So I thought he was, like a strong guy because he body puncher. I'm thinking like, oh, he just a big guy that could punch, punch well to the body, got some skill. I didn't know he was a small guy. I'm like, oh shit. Now I see how. And he's what? How much did he weigh for that fight, Joe? By the way.
Oh, I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Like 230, something like that. 220.
I'm not sure.
I would guess. I'm just saying from looking at him, and that's crazy. But yeah. Anyway, yeah. Most of the fights I didn't know about, so But that Caballero one, that was, unfortunate.
Moving on. Again, I want to try to whiz through the rest of this. We have Josh Buatsi losing his O. He's now 19-1. A very, very, very good performance from Callum Smith, now 31-2. That one for the WBO interim light heavyweight world title. A lot of people felt that Callum Smith had nothing left. A lot of people felt he lost his hunger. A lot of people were overlooking him in the build-up. I'd said that numerous times in the build-up to this fight. And again, I said on last week's show, I do think that it's not going to be easy for Buatsi. There's going to be, Smith's not going to make it easy for him. And I said I wouldn't want to bet against him. Well, what a brilliant performance from Callum Smith. I'm going to just run through my scorecard. I actually scored this fight. I gave the first 3 rounds to Callum Smith. I gave the 4th to Buatsi. Round 5 was a massive round for Smith. Round 6 was a Smith round, again a massive round, but then at the end of the round, Smith walked into a shot from Buatsi and ended the round on the ropes, covering up. It was a cracking fight as well at that point. For large times in the fight as well, Smith could not miss with that massive left hook to the body. That is such a dangerous weapon for him, and it has been for years, to be honest with you, but he kept landing it in the sweet spot of Buatsi's ribcage, and Buatsi, to his credit, took some fantastic shots to the body, showed his toughness. He really is elite level tough. Round 7 was a Buatsi round. It was a quiet round, but I felt he just out-jabbed Smith, really. Round 8 was a close round. It could have gone either way, in all honesty. I'm going to give it a 10-10. Round 9 was a big round for Callum Smith. Round 10, Smith looked really tired all of a sudden, and he landed some good shots, but probably the best shots of the round were landed by Buatsi. Buatsi largely outworked Callum Smith, and he was starting to really put the pressure on. It seemed like Buatsi had found a second wind. Virgil Hunter in the corner had told Buatsi he needed a KO to win. He also came out in the 11th and won that round. And then the 12th and final round, Smith actually came out and dominated. He found an extra gear to close the show. He didn't look great in rounds 10 and 11, but he let it all out in the 12th and looked sometimes 1 or 2 shots away from stopping Buatsi. So for me, all in all, a clear Smith win. And my scorecard, again, just to reiterate, 116-113. So by 3 points I had Callum Smith. We know that one judge had it horrendously wide. I think it was Steve Gray, if I'm not mistaken. Terrible scorecard. It was like 119-109, something mad like that. That's absolute ludicrous there. But like I say, really, really good performance from Callum Smith, who has straight away in one fight come back and gone straight to the top of the British pile in terms of light heavyweights, because Buatsi had done quite a good job clearing up domestically with the likes of Willie Hutchinson and the likes of Craig Richards and Dan Aziz and a couple of other guys. He kind of cleaned out that domestic scene. The only guy he didn't box was obviously Anthony Yard. And Anthony Yard in his last performance looked really, really, really flat. And a lot of people would have picked Buatsi to beat Yard. So obviously for this fight here, Buatsi was the favourite against Callum Smith, even though Smith's a former champion. But Smith, like I say, was fantastic and showed that he's not done at all. He wants a world title shot, and he probably does deserve another crack. Obviously, it's not going to be easy. One man holds all the belts. We've seen him lose wide to Canelo. We've seen him lose wide to Beterbiev. So I think I don't see him fighting Bivol anytime soon, and I don't think there's much in that for Bivol anyway. So I don't know what he's going to do while he's waiting around. But again, I wouldn't mind seeing him in with Anthony Yarde. That's the fight to be made, to be totally honest with you. But whether or not we're going to see it's another story. Shame we never did see Buatsi Yarde. It looked like that was going to happen at one point. But yeah. I mean, Buatsi's kind of proved he's the best we've got in Britain. And Callum Smith was magnificent the other night, especially the fact that he hadn't gone and done that many rounds for many years. He was brilliant, all things considered. Very impressive from Callum Smith. What else did we have on the card? That was probably fight of the night, actually, that one, by the way. But yeah, let's go straight to let's go to this one here. Carlos Adames, now 24-1 with a draw. It was a split draw over 12 rounds against the UK's Hamza Shiraz, now 21-0, still undefeated, but he's got the one minor blemish, that draw. Adames still the WBC middleweight world champion. Hamza Shiraz, I think, had knocked out 15 men in a row. That streak has come to an end. I would love to know, by the way, who now holds that record for having the most knockouts in British boxing. The most, like, the best, longest knockout streak at the moment that they're still on. Not like, Fabio Wardley knocked out 14 people, and I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the active, longest knockout streak in British boxing. I would love to know who's got that. If anyone actually can come up with the answer to that, they can send it in to us on Twitter, or X these days, at BoxHard_podcast, then you will be sent a BoxHard Podcast t-shirt. So yeah, if anyone can let me know, that's a very interesting question. It used to be Fabio Wardley, then he went the distance with Fraser Clark, then it was Sam Noakes, he went the distance with Yvonne Mendy, then Hamza Shiraz the other night went the distance with Carlos Adames. But anyway, it was a close fight, but I would probably say Adames did enough to win. Again, I wasn't silly enough to overlook Adames. I said it's a massive step up for Hamza Shiraz. Adames is a very, very good fighter, very respectable punching power as well, and he was being overlooked massively by the bookies. He was the biggest underdog out of all of the competitive fights, not Josh Padley against Shakur Stevenson, is basically what I'm saying. Out of all the other fights, Adames was the biggest underdog. That is crazy to me. They had Shiraz, I think it was 4-11 to win the fight. So they weren't expecting Adames to be able to basically withstand Hamza's power. Hamza did break his hand. That has been confirmed, so we're going to cut him a bit of slack. He broke his hand in the fight. I'm not entirely sure which round, but yeah, he was quite poor at times and just didn't really seem to have much creativity in the ring. It was very basic. It was kind of like watching a sparring session, but not a sparring session at the beginning of the day, more like a sparring session towards the end of the day. Just very flat, and Adames didn't make it a great fight either, really. So again, that one was probably the fight to forget on the card. But obviously Turki Al Sheikh wanted Hamza Shiraz to win. We know that. I'm not going to go into that. I'm sure people have seen the video, but yeah, Hamza Shiraz for me did not do enough to win, did not do enough to draw, and again, we got to cut him a little bit of slack for the broken hand, but I wasn't that impressed at all. Moving up once again, we're going to touch on this one now, and I'm going to come to you, Eddie. Virgil Ortiz Jr., 23-0 now. He goes the distance for only the second time in 23 fights. I think it was a successful defence. I'm not entirely sure, but it was for the WBC interim super welterweight world title. He stepped in with Israel Madrimov, now 10-2 with a draw. Madrimov, I guess, Eddie, has kind of become a name since giving Terence Crawford a very tough fight. But again, I hate to sound like I'm some kind of boxing expert at times, because I'm certainly not. I don't get things right all the time. But when I say something the week before the fight and it plays out like that, I do like to just remind the listeners and myself and you. But I did say on last week's show, I don't think that just because he gave Crawford a very tough competitive fight, that it's necessarily going to play out like that here. I said that Virgil Ortiz's style is completely different to Terence Crawford. He's more aggressive. I think you touched on the fact that, Madrimov's hard to hit. Madrimov's got very good feet. We saw that. Madrimov in the first few rounds was very, very mobile, but wasn't really doing enough. And obviously Virgil Ortiz was kind of forcing the pressure and forcing the pace of the fight. And as the rounds went on, I mean, at times it was a little bit boring, which I hate to say, because I was super, super excited for all those fights. And this was, by some, going to be the best fight of the night. But it obviously didn't end up being that way. But Virgil Ortiz hurt Madrimov several times in the fight, and it looked like the end could be close. But yeah, I was quite disappointed with Madrimov, but I felt that Virgil Ortiz was very, very impressive, and once again he's I guess performed above most people's expectations, because I think he was actually the slight favourite, but a lot of people were picking Madrimov. You weren't unpopular with your pick there, Eddie. A lot of people felt the same way, but he showed once again another wrinkle, and he's a much smarter fighter than I think he gets given credit for. Virgil Ortiz, he's not just this power puncher. We saw that the other night. Good boxing brain, and again, he's aggressive with it, but it makes for a good fight if you've got the right dancing partner. We saw the right dancing partner with Sergei Bohachuk. Madrimov and him, their styles didn't really match up too fantastically, but yeah, Virgil Ortiz for the most part was outworking him and showed a very good engine as well. Didn't really seem to dip at any point. That was my take on it, Eddie, but I wanted to see what you thought about it.
Yeah, the early rounds I thought that Madrimov was doing a lot of moving, but the moving kind of, I don't want to say frustrated, but it kind of threw off Ortiz's offense early. He really wasn't able to get any or sustain really any major offense. You know what I'm saying? So that part, the early part, I thought Madrimov was doing what I kind of expected. And I figured, and then he was also landing shots periodically here and there, some straight shots, but nothing really of too, that was too consequential, nothing major. But it's still he was still kind of able to kind of somewhat control the range, even though I thought that Ortiz was doing well maintaining like the aggressor role, which kind of makes it difficult to win a fight by boxing if you're not able to really get them. Like, because I think Ortiz was at times able to touch him a little bit here and there, and that aggression, when they start judging the aggression as effective, when he could touch him a little bit, even if it's not a lot. And then it's some of his movement looked a little frantic. It was a little bit too constant. I would have liked if he would have stood his ground a little bit more at times. And he eventually had to go to that as the fight went on. And I think at that point it was, I'm not saying it was too late. I mean, I thought the fight was still kind of close-ish, but once I think Ortiz started to like kind of take round after round, it was only like about the last three or so. It was a consistent offense. Then he had somewhat forced Madrimov to now fight his style fight, the kind of fight that he wanted him to fight from, obviously from jump. And Madrimov seemed like he was just reacting to, to Ortiz being in his face the whole time, almost kind of like being frustrated or angry or disrespected, to where he now has to go out and put his hands on him and try to make get a big shot land or make a huge difference in a short period of time. And I think sometimes that, that obviously is not going to be a good, especially for a guy like Madrimov who's tricky and rangy and can box. to now try to fight, going forward and try to get somewhat out of character. And they said, during the broadcast that he's won some, knockdown, not knockdown, drag out, but, somewhat like, a firefight with other guys, and he's won those types of fights, and that's great. But that's kind of what Ortiz wants, and I think Ortiz's pace, and he was a little bit quicker. His shots were a little sharper as well than I was expecting too, coming from Ortiz. So, the fight I thought was, close-ish, but it just depends on what you like and what you favor. But yeah, it was an interesting fight. I thought Madrimov would have done a little better with the boxing and utilize his range a little bit better, kind of like he did Crawford. But Crawford, once again, that was Crawford's first fight at 54. He's a different style than Ortiz, and triangle theories do not work, once again, as evident of this fight. So, interesting fight. But at the end of the day, I can't disagree that Ortiz won and did a good job in doing so. But, we're going to see the future. I want to see the future of both fighters again, especially Ortiz, obviously, him still being undefeated. And beating a guy like a Madrimov is a good step in the right direction for him. So I'm excited to see what the future holds.
And then moving to the main event, Dmitry Bivol, now 24-1. More importantly, now the new undisputed light heavyweight champion of the world. He got his get back. You predicted it correctly, Eddie. I think I did as well, but I can't remember now. I think I did. I'm pretty sure I did.
You did. You said it. You'll look at the review, the preview, but you definitely said it. We both agreed.
And Beterbiev now 21-1. He loses Hizzo. Obviously very, very, very good fight. I think that in a lot of ways it was quite similar to the first one. I actually will go through my scorecard and I'm wondering what the listeners may think about that. Bivol, I gave him the first round. I felt it was a very close round though. I gave Bivol the second and the third. Now, this is where things get weird because I gave the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh to Beterbiev. The commentators were picking up on a possible Bivol injury from about round 5 because his work rate seemed to really dip all of a sudden, and we knew that it's not due to conditioning, but what was going on? They were thinking maybe there's an injury. We saw Bivol's cornermen working on his legs, I think, in between the rounds, like they were massaging his leg, and also he seemed to not be throwing any right hands, which again, it was like, what's going on here? Is it a hand injury? Is it a leg injury? What is it? That was weird. Round 6, like I said, I gave to Beterbiev, gave him 4, 5, 6, and 7, but again, round 6 was a strange round from Bivol because when he did let his right hand go, I felt he was throwing it with intent again. But again, very periodically he'd let it go. And round 7, like I say, gave to Beterbiev, but it was a close round again. So I've got it at this point 4-3 to Beterbiev. Round 8 for me was a Bivol round. He seemed to be back to looking good. It was just, again, bit puzzling what had happened in the last 4 rounds. I gave Bivol the 9th as well. I felt he was excellent in that round. Round 10 I gave to Beterbiev. It was a close round and I had it all square at that point, 5-5 with 2 rounds to go. I gave round 11 to Bivol, but it was a close round, and I gave round 12 of course to Beterbiev. He closed strong, but it was a close round again, and that made my card be a draw. I had it 6-6, so 114, a draw. Again, I've seen a lot of people edge into Bivol here. I don't think I've seen that many people edge into Beterbiev. I don't read too much online, but again, looking back now at my scorecard, there were a lot of close rounds that I edged to Bivol, and if one of them would have gone the other way, then and that's what can happen with close rounds, then Beterbiev would have won. I think that the rounds Beterbiev won were clearer to score than the rounds that Bivol won. But yeah, again, Eddie, a lot like the first fight. Obviously, it was very, very close. We all expected that. We expected it to go the distance once again and it to be close, which it was. But there were times where Bivol was more aggressive, again, like I expected, and times where he really would put his combinations together, and we know that when both men let their hands go, Bivol's got the edge in hand speed, and it's quite eye-catching. I think he did catch Beterbiev with a few meaty shots throughout the fight. Nothing that Beterbiev couldn't handle as such, but they were putting him on his back foot a little bit at times, and that's always good to see from Bivol. But again, when Beterbiev was really in the mood and he was letting his hands go, Bivol was taking the shots on the ropes at times and not looking in trouble, but clearly being bothered by the power, which is very obvious. That's how hard Beterbiev hits. But there were just times where Beterbiev had big moments, and I take my hat off to Bivol for again, like I said, being more aggressive and pushing Beterbiev back at times, but he wasn't doing as much damage as Beterbiev was doing. But again, Bivol is such a great fighter. He's a friend of the show, by the way, and I was really happy because again, he may have deserved the first one. I edged it to Beterbiev close, but I'm just happy that we're probably going to see a third fight. I mean, these two are so good for each other, man. Like, it really is such a fantastic tactical fight, especially from Bivol's point of view. He's got to be so clever about how he paces himself. He's got to be clever about his punch output. He's got to be clever about his defense. He's got to be clever about when he chooses his moment to attack. Whereas Beterbiev, he does have to do those same things, of course he does, but I feel like Bivol's point of view, it's much more of a thinking fight for him than it is Beterbiev. And yeah, he's one of the absolute smartest fighters in the game for me, and it was just good to see him get that win, get that revenge. We're going to see a third fight, of course we are, but once again solidifying himself as one of the true best pound for pound fighters in the world. What did you make of it, Eddie?
Yeah, I agree with that, Joe. On all accounts, I thought the fight was razor thin. I picked Bivol because I figured, looking at the first fight, a lot of people thought he won, which I wasn't disagreeing with it. You know what I mean? Totally. I mean, I thought Beterbiev did better than a lot of people that I knew. I mean, there was a lot of other folks that thought Beterbiev won. So, yeah, it was just, but it's real. It's just they're very closely matched. You know what I mean? There's a style clash that makes them different fighters, but when it all comes down to it, they're one, maybe 2 points better than each other on a given night. It's not going to be a wide margin, especially if the fight goes the distance. Now, if one of them happens to get caught in a crazy situation, it's almost like if you think about the Marquez and Pacquiao fights. They were always super close, and one had the edge here, unless one of them landed that big punch, which Marquez did in the other fight, the last fight. But it's very similar to this kind of a thing. They're always going to be closely matched. They're always going to, have that kind of a reaction to each other, and they're good for each other. You know what I mean? It's like Magic and Bird in basketball. I don't know if you know who those two guys are, but that's what it's like. It's like they bring the best out of each other, and it's good for boxing fans. You know what I mean? And to see two guys who are, going to be Hall of Famers in the future actually fight each other in this day and age is kind of rare in a sense. You know what I mean? You don't see a lot of the guys, going out taking losses and putting their records on the line and their legacy on the line to fight other greats. And that's a good thing to see in modern boxing. And I think you got to thank Turki Al-Sheikh. I think he's a big reason that these things are happening, and a lot of these guys are actually fighting each other. And you got to get a guy credit, and you also got to get the fighters credit for wanting to step in and actually do what they should have been doing most of the time, or what we should have been seeing in fights in the recent past. So, man, great fight. It could have went either way. I actually thought that Bivol probably edged it. Especially I think he finished fairly strong as well. I mean, don't get me wrong, Beterbiev did too, but I like Bivol's work. It was a really fantastic tactical, but yet aggressive type of fight. It was good. I enjoyed it.
And then moving to the final card of the review part of the show, it went down on Monday the 24th at the Ariake Arena in Tokyo, Japan. Over here, 3 fights to mention. We saw Tenshin Nasukawa move to 6-0, a win for him unanimously over 10 rounds against former world champion Jason Maloney, now 27-4. We saw Saya Tsutsumi move to 12-0 with 3 draws. His rematch with Daigo Higa ends in a draw once again. Daigo Higa now 21-3 with a second draw. Like I say, a unanimous draw, which we don't often see, but all 3 judges giving it a draw over 12 rounds there for, I believe, the WBA Bantamweight World title. So again, those guys are so evenly matched. They've drawn again. And the main event was Junto Nakatani moving to 30-0. He was able to KO in the 3rd round David Cuellar Contreras, now 28-1. He loses his O. This one was for the WBC Bantamweight World title, if I'm not mistaken. May have had another belt on the line, I can't remember now. But anyway, the fight itself, very, very, very fun fight. It was a 3-round shootout, if you like, and it was fun. I think that, David Cuellar Contreras, who I'd never seen fight before, I'm going to hold my hands up. He went out there to Japan. Obviously, he's a Mexican fighter, and he went in there Mexican style, as Triple G would say, and just put it right on Nakatani. He was so aggressive, coming forward, winging in shots from strange angles. I felt at times that Nakatani was being a little bit unadventurous. I'm using words I don't often use this week, but again, a little bit non-creative. I felt at times he was just trying to land the straight 1-2 too many times. I felt that Contreras was mixing it up, was throwing punches from strange angles, and was really just trying to get through with something on Nakatani. And I think he did get through. I think he hit Nakatani with some big shots, and I don't think the commentary were too friendly, not friendly, but too fair on Contreras. I think they were kind of too busy talking about how great Nakatani is. He is obviously great. I'm not saying he's not, but I think he got caught a couple of times with some big shots. But again, he was able to weather that onslaught, and the shots that he was coming back with were lethal. And the finish in the end was lethal, man. He absolutely set about Contreras, and he hit him with probably about 5 or 6 shots before he went down, and you could hear every single one of them on the TV. That was the only punches of the entire fight that you could actually hear the thud from. And I think I can't remember what shot he caught Contreras with, but it was like a bang, then a bang, then a thud, then a thud. And it was like, whoa. It was like he completely switched his power to level 100. And when he wanted to finish him, he finished him. And yeah, like I say, some people saying that he didn't really show Contreras respect. He wanted to go in there and walk through him and make a statement. I think it had more to do with Contreras trying to come forward and force the fight. He was definitely the aggressor coming forward, and obviously trying to meet Nakatani head on. But Nakatani was very impressive. So another good win. We want to see him move up, I believe, and box Naoya Inoue. Hopefully that one happens at some point. It would be a fantastic fight. The whole of Japan would be tuning in for it. It's a massive fight there for Asian boxing if we do see it. But as of right now, Nakatani again is right up there, pound for pound. Anyway, that brings the review part to a close. It's been lengthy. It's now time to welcome this week's special guest. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the reigning WBA Super-Lightweight champion of the world. It is, of course, Mr. Jose Valenzuela. Jose, welcome on the show, my friend.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me.
Hey, it's my pleasure. So, Jose, man, here in the UK, you've been growing your fan base. I mean, we've been enjoying staying up late to watch you fight live in the early hours of the morning. I think the fight that really excited people was that Colbert rematch. Obviously, the first fight being so close. The second fight, you simply wouldn't let it go to the judges.
Right. Yeah, no, thank you, man. And shout out to all the fans I got in the UK. I'm gonna keep putting on great events, shows, fights for you guys, and I can't wait March 1st.
And obviously, most recently, they had you as the underdog against Pitbull Cruz. And for me, that was definitely the best performance I've seen from you. You showed that you could execute a game plan to perfection. You showed you could adapt during a fight. Your ring IQ was clear to see in that fight. And your footwork was too quick for Cruz. Tell me about that fight just briefly. And of course, how much it meant to you to hear those 3 magic words at the end.
Oh, man, it was a dream come true. It was a night I'll never forget. It was a great fight. I came with the game plan and I stuck to it. Kept them at the outside of my punches, using my jab, feints, all the little tricks up my sleeve. I let them have it. Came up with some nice uppercuts, and did that for 12 rounds, and I came out victorious. A dream come true, and can't wait to continue this momentum.
And most boxers have that dream as a kid of one day becoming a world champion. Once you've achieved that dream, though, like you have, Rayo, what becomes the new dream? What's your next career goal?
I don't know. I don't know if I should say it. But I got some goals up. I got some goals ahead of me, and I think just time will slowly tell, and people will see my greatness.
Okay. And yeah, let's talk about this upcoming fight. As you've hinted at, you'll be making your first defense of your title on Saturday, March the 1st, against Gary Antuanne Russell. What do you make of Russell as a fighter, Jose? Because he was bombing guys out there looking $1 million, but last time against Puello, he seemed to really struggle with his style. And I know that you are capable of using some of that in your game plan.
I think he's a great fighter. I think he's a very solid opponent. Strong. He only has 1 loss, and the rest by knockout. So that speaks for itself. But none of that matters. I'm a whole different fighter. I'm a full package. I can box. I can fight inside with him. Like he likes to kind of get rugged. So it'll be a great fight. I think he's gonna bring the best out of me.
Do you feel that Russell will be the best fighter you'd have shared a ring with?
I don't know, to be honest. I don't know. I can't say till I'm in there with him.
Yeah, that's a fair answer. I spoke to Gary a few weeks ago, and he was fairly complimentary about you. He said you've shown that you can adapt in fights, you've shown good skills in fights. He also said he's happy for you, but feels like you bit off more than you can chew with him. He said he's no Isaac Cruz. What's your response to that?
No, 100%. I think he's totally different fighter than Isaac Cruz, and that's for me to deal with and to break him down and stuff like that. So he's ready for this. It's a big opportunity for him. So I know he's coming hard, but so am I. And it was too hard of a road for me to get this belt after 2 losses, having to come back from all of that and finally get it. So I'm holding on tight to that, and I'm not letting go.
And talking of the actual fight itself, how do you see it playing out? Because I think stylistically, and I'm not just saying this, I feel like this fight could steal the show.
Yeah, I'm definitely coming with those plans to steal the show. It's gonna be an exciting fight. Stylistically, he's a lefty. I'm a lefty. He marches forward, and I'll march forward and do what I gotta do. But he's gonna bring the best out of me. I believe I have more shot selections than him, so it'll be a good fight.
And also, I just wanted to say I'm loving your YouTube channel right now. The documentary type videos.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you've been uploading in the build-up to this fight. It's been really, really interesting, being able to see things from behind the scenes. We've had 2 episodes. Will there be a third before fight night, or?
I believe so. If not before, it'll capture like the whole fight week, the whole aftermath, the whole everything. So, I'm gonna continue to stay uploading those videos and interact with the fans and everybody so they can get to know me a little bit.
That's a brilliant thing. I love that, my friend.
Thank you.
My final real question for you, and I'm putting you on the spot slightly here, but the UK fans like to know the answer to this one whenever I speak to a fighter from overseas. If you have one, who would be your favourite UK fighter? It can be any era. Do you have one?
Yeah, what's his name? I like Hatton.
Okay.
Hatton, he fought great fights, man. He fought all my favorite, a lot of my favorite fighters like Manny Pacquiao and stuff like that, Floyd Mayweather. So, he wasn't like, when he wasn't like the best, as like he came up short with those guys, but he always came to fight, and he brought great energy and all that. So, I was a fan of him when I was little too.
Good stuff, man. That's a popular answer. Just before we let you go, Rayo, if you've just got any closing words to the UK fans, maybe in particular, if you just want to sign out with a little message, that'd be great.
Yeah, I want to say, thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for all the love and support. Look out for me March 1st. I'm looking to steal the show and, show the best version of me so far.
We look forward to it, Jose. I want to wish you the very best of luck for March the 1st. Thank you for your time, and we'll speak after the fight, I'm sure.
Yeah, thank you. Have a good one.
Okay, now it's time for part 2 on this week's show. This part, usually the news part, nothing to bring you as of yet. We're going to dive then straight into the preview part of the show. We're going to start here on Saturday at the Coliseo Tomás Donés in Fajardo in Puerto Rico. And I never miss an opportunity to talk about that fine, fine nation. It's going to be going on DAZN, so if you tune into DAZN, you'll see the fights. But let's touch on the 2 main ones. We've got Alfredo Santiago, 16-2, stepping in with Javier Fortuna, 39-5 with a draw these days. That one for the WBO NABO Super-Lightweight title. I was going to say world title then. And we also have Subriel Matias, 21-2 in the main event. Back in his home country, he's back in a 12-rounder here against Gabriel Valenzuela, who is 30-3 with a draw. That should be a fun fight. Usually is when Matias is involved. We're going to move now to Saturday, once again at the Bournemouth International Centre in Bournemouth, United Kingdom. It's going to be live on TNT Sports in the UK. I'll actually be going to this card. Let's touch on the undercard firstly. We've got Karol Italma, 12-1, stepping in with Michael Ludwizak, who's 18-14 with 2 draws. Should be a relatively straightforward win there for Karol Italma. We also have Henry Turner back in the ring following his defeat to Jack Rafferty. He's 13-1. He's stepping in with Miguel Antin, who is 20-19 with a draw. Again, should be a nice, easy comeback win for Henry Turner over 8 rounds. We've also got the juggernaut Joe Joyce back in the ring following his defeat to Derek Chisora. He's 16-3. He's stepping in with Patrick Corte, who's 22-4 with a draw. That's over 8 rounds at heavyweight. Joe Joyce is scheduled to box Dillian White in a few weeks' time. I was surprised to see him still going ahead with this fight here. We've got Mace Rueg, who's stepping in place of Archie Sharp, who pulled out of this fight with Liam Dillon. So Mace Rueg, 12-0. I believe trains in the same gym as Archie Sharp. He's back in a 10-rounder here. Like I say, stepping in for the unavailable Archie Sharp. He gets in with Liam Dillon, who's always in a good fight, 14-2 with a draw. That's going to be very interesting because Liam Dillon is obviously a pressure fighter and he's as tough as anything. Mace Rueg's not a puncher whatsoever. So I'm expecting this one to go the distance and Liam Dillon to cause some issues there, because I don't think Rueg's going to have enough power to keep Dillon at bay. We're also going to see Lewis Edmondson back in the ring, coming off his win against Dan Aziz. He looked really good in that fight. He's 10-0. He's back here, I think, defending his Commonwealth light heavyweight title over 12 rounds against Oluwatosin Kejawa. Can't tell you much about the guy, aside from the fact he's got a mouthful of a name. He's 11-0. That's the one thing I can tell you. Obviously, haven't heard of the guy whatsoever, but Lewis Edmondson looked fantastic last time out. He really showed up against Dan Aziz and, announced himself, I guess, kind of on that domestic scene. I mean, we spoke about it earlier on in the show. I was saying that Buatsi had kind of wiped out the domestic scene with obviously beating Aziz, Craig Richards, Willie Hutchinson. One of the names that obviously deserves to be in that mix but doesn't really get mentioned, unfortunately, is Lewis Edmondson. And like I say, he was able to beat Dan Aziz, so he's deserved, to kind of get to this level, and he deserves to be mentioned among them top boys domestically, I think. So, yeah. It's going to be interesting. Like I say, he's boxing another guy who's undefeated, a Nigerian fighter based in Bristol. And that's all I'm going to say about it. There's not too much I know about the Nigerian. And in the main event, we have Ryan the Piranha Garner, 16-0, friend of the show. He's back following his victory over Archie Sharp back in, I want to say, July or June of last year. He's boxing here for the vacant EBU European Super Featherweight title and the WBC International Super Featherweight title. He steps in with the Spaniard Salvador Jimenez, 14-0 with a draw. I feel like, we spoke to Ryan Garner a few weeks ago, and I feel like he is in a very, very good place at the moment mentally. I mean, he was obviously thrilled to have beaten Archie Sharp. He's moved on now to the European. He's going to probably win this, and yeah, it's going to set up a really big 2025 for him. So I expect him to win this fight. I think it's going to be a good fight, though. Like I say, I think he's got a stubborn opponent up against him, but yeah, I think he'll win the fight, and it's going to probably be a good fight while it lasts. And then again, he's another guy with a very bright future. It took a while for him to get going. There was always a lot of talk about Ryan Garner, but yeah, a little bit of inactivity and things like that, and he was kind of pushed to the back of people's minds, and he's right up there now. And again, he's another guy you wouldn't really want to bet against him winning a world title in the next couple of years. I think he's got a good, exciting style. Moving now then to the SSE Arena in Belfast, Northern Ireland. This one's going to be on DAZN. I'm really sad that this one's obviously going to clash with the card at Bournemouth, so I'm going to be probably sitting in the ringside seats, and I'm going to be streaming with one eye on the stream and one eye on the ring in front of me. But yeah, there's some good fights on this card. We've got Tommy McCarthy, 21-6, stepping in with Stephen Ward, 14-3. That's over 10 rounds at cruiserweight. It's probably the battle of who needs to retire quickest. We've also got Kurt Walker, 11-0, stepping in with Leon Woodstock, 16-3. That's over 10 rounds at featherweight. We've got Craig Richards, friend of the show, who was on last week's podcast, 18-4 with a draw. He's back in action against Padraig McCrory, 19-1. I'm not entirely sure. Oh yeah, Padraig has come back with a win, hasn't he, since losing to Berlanga. So yeah, he's back against Craig Richards. Craig Richards is a favourite with the bookies. I think that's interesting. I do, of course, want him to win, of course, but he's quite a clear favourite if my memory serves me right. And I found that a little bit surprising because he was very flat last time against Willie Hutchinson. He's obviously coming off a loss, but again, I spoke to Craig quite in depth after our interview, and yeah, he definitely told me a few things, made me think that he's right back to his best, and I think we're going to see good things from him here on the weekend. And the main event, I can't see it not delivering. We've got 20-0 undefeated Lewis Crocker against 14-0 undefeated Paddy Donovan. It's over 12 rounds at welterweight. No titles on the line, but obviously it's more of a status fight, this one. The winner goes on to big things. The loser, I wouldn't say goes drastically down the drain, but obviously it's going to be a little bit of a rebuilding process. I want to see the odds on this because, again, I think it's a really, really interesting fight. Obviously, both guys have been very impressive since turning pro. They're in good form, very impressive in terms of, you know, the momentum that they've been on in recent fights. And the favourite is... Oh, they've got it dead even in the bookies. Dead even. That's interesting. Okay, that's very interesting there. Okay, yeah, so they can't be split. They're both 10-11. That's just such a great fight. Honestly, that again has the makings of fight of the year. We know that Lewis Crocker loves a tear up. He's been in some fantastic fights. Paddy Donovan, I think, is probably the smarter boxer with, you know, the cuter style, but will he unravel against Lewis Crocker? That remains to be seen. I think it's going to be a brilliant main event. Do not miss that one. Moving now then to the final card to mention, Eddie, which goes down at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York, USA. We're going to start with the undercard. We've got Yoenis Tellez, who is a prospect that, well, yeah, he's still a prospect. I wouldn't call him a contender just yet, but he's a guy that a lot of people are very, very high on. Obviously, he's been impressing. He's a massive puncher as well. He's got 7 KOs in his 9 wins. He's picked up some really good knockouts as well. And most impressively was his win against Sergio Garcia. That was a brilliant win back in 2023. Sergio Garcia, a man who had obviously lost on points to both Tony Harrison and Sebastian Fundora, but Yoenis Tellez went in there and stopped him in 3 rounds. That was so impressive. Since then, though, Tellez has kind of gone back a level, I'd say. You know, he's boxed some, I guess, semi-names like, you know, Johan Gonzalez, Joseph Jackson. They're not really on the level of Sergio Garcia, I'd say. But he gets in here with Philadelphia's very own, Eddie, Julian J. Rock Williams, 29-4 with a draw, former champion, friend of the show. He hasn't boxed in 14 months, so he's returning to the ring. All the very best to him, but he will be up against it here, up against the Cuban. Moving up the card again, this one I see will probably be a good, well, I was going to say a good fight. I'm not entirely sure it's going to be the easiest to watch. I can see this one being a little bit boring, but hopefully I'm wrong. But we've got Alberto Puello, 23-0, coming off his upset win over Gary Antuanne Russell. He's boxing here, defending his WBC super lightweight world title against Sandor Martin, 42-3. We know the story with Martin. You've got to go right back to 2017 when he lost to Anthony Yigit. Since then, he's looked very, very good, including wins over Mikey Garcia, a loss against Teofimo Lopez, a split decision loss, which pretty much no one felt Teofimo Lopez won that fight. So in my opinion, he beat Teofimo Lopez. Since that Lopez fight in 2022, he's been a little bit inactive. He's only boxed twice since. Both have been stoppage victories, and he's not really known as a puncher by any means, but again, he's back in the big time here, and I'm really happy for him to get this opportunity against Alberto Puello. But both guys, in my opinion, are very much masterful boxers, so it might be a chess match. It might not be the most exciting fight. Again, both guys not really known for their punching power or their aggressive fighting styles. We also have, obviously, the man that we just spoke to a few moments ago, Jose Valenzuela, 14-2 currently, defending his WBA Super-Lightweight world title against Gary Antuanne Russell, 17-1. Like I said a few moments ago when we spoke to Jose, aka Rayo, it's a good fight. I'm very much looking forward to it, and I think that the styles will gel, and I think it could potentially steal the show. Gary Antuanne Russell, again, another friend of the show, both guys friends of the show. We spoke to him probably about 4 weeks ago. He's another good guy. He was quite honest when I asked him, does he think this fight's going to be as tough as the Alberto Puello fight, he said he didn't think it will be. He's expecting to go in there and probably stop Jose Valenzuela. But again, Valenzuela's looked very, very impressive. Boxing is all about momentum, and he's coming off 2 brilliant wins against Chris Colbert and Isaac Cruz. So again, he's coming off some serious momentum there. He's upset the odds before. He's a champion now. And again, I asked him as well, and he didn't want to answer the question. I said to him, what is the new goal? Obviously, the first goal was to win a world title, being pro. Now that you've done that, what's the next goal? And he didn't really want to reveal what that was. I wanted to know what the answer was to that question, but he didn't want to reveal it. Obviously, the plan will be to keep hold of the title, and he's going to need to put on another career best performance that will probably outdo his last 2 in order to win this. But again, I think it's going to be a very, very good fight. I love watching Gary Antuanne Russell fight. Apart from his last one, I didn't think he looked great against Puello. And then the main event for the WBA Lightweight World title, the champion Gervonta Tank Davis, 30-0, friend of the show, defending his belt against another friend of the show, Lamont Roach Jr., 25-1 with a draw. We are finally getting it. The date's been pushed back a few times. It's finally here on Saturday. It's cool that we have the main event and the chief support, all 4 fighters involved in those 2 fights of friends of the show. That is brilliant, especially for a UK-based podcast about a pay-per-view event. I think it's on pay-per-view in the States. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Again, it's going to be boxer versus, well, I was going to say boxer versus puncher, but you can't just call Gervonta Tank Davis just a puncher. Obviously, he's a boxer puncher. I think stylistically it could be interesting. I know that Lamont Roach in the build-up has seemed very, very confident in his own ability, which he'll need to be. I'm hoping that's not just for show. I hope he does truly believe in himself. I think it could be interesting, stylistically and stuff like that, but you'd be crazy to back against Gervonta Tank Davis. I'm hoping that Roach can do well. Like I say, a lot of people have written him off in the build up to this. There's no pressure on his shoulders at all because no one's really expecting him to do much. Everyone's expecting Gervonta Davis to walk through him. I hope he doesn't walk through him. You know what I mean? I don't mind Gervonta. I'm not his biggest fan. I'm not a hater of his by any means either, but I like Lamont Roach. I think he did very well to win a world title, and yeah, obviously it's a big fight for him here. It's the biggest fight of his career, and his self-belief will get him far in this fight. I'm just hoping he can stick to a good game plan, and hopefully it can be interesting. Like I say, I think it will be interesting while it lasts, but you can't really back against Tank. I think he showed quite a lot to his game, whereas Lamont Roach, not to say he's one-dimensional, that would be wrong, but I don't think he's quite as well-rounded as Tank. But again, I'm hoping that he can do the business, and I'd like to see Roach win, but I wouldn't want to back it with any kind of money. So yeah, that's pretty much what I've made of the entire card. That's pretty much my views, Eddie. Did you want to add anything to any of that at all?
Well, obviously the Tank fight, Lamont Roach. That's funny because not too long ago Lamont Roach fought, and I bet on him to win, and he actually made my parlay good, and then one other fighter messed it up. So I do like Lamont Roach, but now he can box a little bit. He's a pretty decent fighter, but I just think Tank is on another level, and it's just. Hopefully he does well and actually gives a good, account of himself. But, it's only a matter of time in a situation like that, dealing with a fighter like Tank at this point in his career. So, we'll see. I know of Rio and that it actually looked, I don't want to be wrong here, but, who did didn't he just have a big win not too long ago, if I'm not mistaken?
Who, Rayo?
Yeah.
Yeah, he beat Isaac Cruz and he beat Chris Colbert before that.
Yes. Yeah, what am I saying? So that's exactly who I was. So yeah, he actually looked really, really good, and him fighting. Damn, I forget. You literally just said it. And this is Boxing Brain 101 right here. This is why you don't box if you don't have to. But who's he fighting again? Oh my gosh!
He's fighting Gary Antuanne Russell.
And as good as he looked in those last fights, this is a different kind of fighter. I mean, obviously with oh my gosh, why can't I remember who he just said he fought? Well, I know he beat Isaac Cruz, but the kid who fought from New York. Anyway, he's a pretty good boxer, fast, sharp, but he, overcame that, dealt with all of the, the antics that he has, that fighter. I can't remember his name right off the top of my head right now for some reason. And then he goes in to fight Isaac Cruz after that. Isaac Cruz, a killer, been knocking everybody out, basically, with the exception of Tank. And he gave him one hell of a boxing lesson, which, I think he's just on a really good run. It's going to be very, very difficult, even though it's going to be a very difficult fight, I think, for Gary Antuanne Russell, even though he's a hell of a fighter himself, even though he had that recent loss. I don't even know who to pick in that one, to be honest. But if I was forced, I would probably pick Gary Antuanne Russell. But other than that, all the other fights, those are the two that I really wanted to mention a couple things about. But just looking forward to it. I would love to have gone to that. We were actually making plans to possibly go to the fight, and being that it's in at the Barclays, but just too much stuff going on, so I'm not going to be able to make it. But it's always nice to. I remember I've been to a couple of Tanks fights in the Barclays. It's always a nice event. Trust me. I saw some crazy things too, by the way, but I'm not going to mention that on the air. But anyway, just looking forward to it. Hopefully the card turns out to be great.
Yeah, hopefully it turns out to be great. Like I say, there's boxing in the States, there's boxing in Puerto Rico. I thought I'd get that in once more. And there's boxing in the United Kingdom, which I'll be at in Bournemouth, like I said. So I'll be going straight back to the hotel and sticking on the card in the US. So again, some good fights to sink your teeth into this weekend following the amazing epic weekend of boxing last weekend. It's hard to follow after that, but it's not a bad week of boxing. Anyway, that brings pretty much everything to a close. The final thing for me to do is to come in with the outro, which I'll do in just a few seconds. Okay, and this brings episode 488 of the BoxHard Podcast to a close. I've been your host, Joey Coastman. Eddie Chambers has been with me for the duration of the show. A massive shout out to this week's special guest, the reigning WBA Super-Lightweight champion of the world, that man being Mr. Jose Valenzuela. All the very best to him in his fight on Saturday. The biggest thanks of all goes out to you, the listeners. Thanks once again for tuning in. That is about everything now from myself. Enjoy your weekends, people. Stay safe, and we'll see you all again same time next week.